That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, I have to give you a warning. I'm going to be unbearable in this video, okay? You are going to be so annoyed with me by the time we get halfway through because I'm just going to be saying, I told you, I told you, I told you. I mean, we had a fantastic week this week, back-to-back weeks where I feel like we just crushed damn near every single call. We ended up winning like $1,000 off our bets on Underdog Fantasy at the same time, and we only ended up betting like $250 to win $1,000 is unbelievable. And before we get into the video, I need to ask you, go to the comment section. Let me know the dumbest thing that I said this past week. That way everybody can see that I'm truly an idiot. And even though I'm coming out and saying, I told you, I told you, I told you, I know exactly how stupid I am. And most importantly, this is the biggest thing that I could ask of you all season. You know, we live stream every single day, upload multiple videos every single day as well, dedicating my entire life to the flock this fantasy football season. And y'all know our partners, Underdog Fantasy. We have done so many drafts on Underdog Fantasy. We've done so many player props. Well, Underdog Fantasy agreed if we get 10,000 signups on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, that they are going to be flying people to Tampa, Florida to go to a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game with me, to go to the Florida Flock meetup. Now, of course, this will be done as a giveaway for people who use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. And when you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy and you go through the link in the description of the video or in the comment section, you actually get a couple things. You get a max deposit bonus. You get daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And most importantly, you support this show more than you would ever believe. I'm pretty sure they told us that if we got 10,000 signups, they would fly people down because they didn't think it was possible. But let's show them how strong the flock is. Please, if you enjoy what we are doing, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Make a $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK. Get the max deposit bonus. Get additional daily entries from here on out until the end of the season to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And support the show more than you would ever believe. Come on, let's show them how strong the flock is. Let's go through and get those signups. And now, let me give away 2 Fantasy Flock Network hats right now. This one going out to Joseph, says, my dude, thank you for sacrificing your life for our fantasy football needs. My friend, thank you so much for supporting the channel. And also Brandon says, no one else live streaming every single night. Thank you for always coming for us. By the way, can I get a hat? Yes, you know we're giving away hats every single day through the comment section as well. Just go send that email to me ASAP with your address. That way I can send those out to Brandon and whoever else we gave it to. Now, let's go through and let's talk about our top 10 takeaways, starting it off with Saquon Barkley. Is Saquon Barkley, okay, you know Saquon Barkley was our number 1 buy low running back 2 weeks ago before the Atlanta Falcons, just because we are viewing Saquon Barkley. And y'all know this is a running back that I was advocating for people to go draft in the first round as someone that is that prototypical bell cow running back that not only is going to be getting a significant amount of usage on first and second down, but he had that Alvin Kamara type upside in his receiving game. Now with Saquon Barkley coming out this past week, that's exactly what we get. He comes out 13 carries. That's not why you're drafting Saquon Barkley at all. I mean, remember the reason why we were drafting Barkley besides the talent alone. We love the fact that he had 7 targets a game back in 2018. So yes, he only goes through and gets 13 carries, but I mean, he takes those 13 carries, converts them over to 52 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown. We also know as with Saquon Barkley's frame, this is going to be a running back seeing every single goal line rush. And then he also comes out, more importantly, 5 receptions, 74 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown to go along with it. Now with Barkley here, this was also a pretty tough matchup against the New Orleans Saints defense, and this Giants offense was very impressive. I mean, you can't just overlook what you actually had from Daniel Jones this week, where, trust me, I know that this was a game that kind of came down to the wire. I know that it was very competitive, but against the New Orleans Saints, it's a very tough defense. And I just think that in an encouraging win for the New York Giants, we should be more excited about what we have from this overall offense. And this includes the running back that's seeing every single touch out of the backfield. I mean, we told y'all you weren't drafting Barkley in the first round for what you were going to get in the first 2 weeks. Yes, he may have been on a snap count through the first 2 weeks, but the training wheels are off. Saquon Barkley, top, I want to say maybe 4 running back rest of season. I think he's probably the running back 4 rest of season. Now our next lesson learned is, oh my God, okay, let's start it off with something that I got so wrong coming into the year. looks like Kenneth Gainwell, officially the third down running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. Where y'all know one of the reasons we won so much money on Underdog Fantasy this past week is just the fact that we were telling y'all to smash the unders. I mean, we are going under on Myles Sanders because here with Myles Sanders, this was a running back that we really were not convinced that the matchup was going to be adequate for the Philadelphia Eagles to be able to come out here and run the ball. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. You only had 10 combined carries between Kenneth Gainwell and Myles Sanders. Now, what's important to look at here is the targets that these running backs got out of the backfield because, of course, Kansas City was leading pretty much the entire game here. And with Kansas City leading, you actually had the Philadelphia Eagles deploying Kenneth Gainwell as that third down, passing down running back, where you had 8 targets out of this backfield. 8 targets to Myles Sanders, 3 targets. Now, Myles Sanders was much more efficient, but it honestly doesn't matter. What I would prefer to focus in on is I'd prefer to focus in on the usage that you had between these two running backs. And the usage indicates that Kenneth Gainwell is someone that you have to have on every roster that is going to be severely impacting Myles Sanders' upside. Myles Sanders right now is probably only a running back that you can play in games where the Philadelphia Eagles are favorites. And we said this coming into this past week. I mean, on every single live stream, we were coming out talking about why this was a very bad matchup for Myles Sanders and why I thought that even though I have Myles Sanders on a ton of my own leagues, that we should have been looking to go sell Myles Sanders because he had this matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs where you could easily see the Chiefs boat racing the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles were going to abandon the run, as we saw against the Dallas Cowboys this past week. Then they're going to go up against the Carolina Panthers a week from now. I know that Ezekiel Elliott just ran all over them, but I still think the Carolina Panthers have an above average run defense. And then after that, they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the toughest run defense in the entire NFL. So we said it coming into this past week that Myles Sanders was a player that we were selling low after a disappointing performance against Dallas because we thought his value was only going to go lower. Well, the value is still going lower, and I still think there's a chance for you to possibly sell now and then maybe buy him after he plays the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at just an all-time low. Now, our next lesson learned is do not doubt anybody in the Arizona Cardinals offense. The Arizona Cardinals are unstoppable here. Where we knew this was going to be one of the highest scoring, if not the highest scoring games of the week, I was trying to play as many guys in both of these offenses as we possibly could, except one player in particular. I came out and I said, you know what? Given the matchup, given the fact that the Arizona Cardinals are underdogs here, and we'd imagine that the Cardinals are going to look to throw the ball consistently as this is going to be just a full-on shootout, that we don't want to be playing James Conner. I mean, James Conner is that goal line running back. We also know that Kyler Murray can steal that usage at the goal line. And here you actually had James Conner coming out in what was a very impressive win by the Arizona Cardinals. He had 18 carries, 50 rushing yards, and more importantly, 2 rushing touchdowns from James Conner. And this is kind of what you're betting on if you're starting James Conner. You're betting on the fact that he does have this touchdown upside in what's an elite offense in football. Now, honestly, I still want Chase Edmonds going forward. With Edmonds, he was much more efficient. He had 12 carries, 120 rushing yards. And he also had that usage in the receiving game. I mean, he had 4 receptions out of this backfield. We know that's going to be the role for Chase Edmonds. And I still want to stand by the fact that, I mean, you can probably find James Conner on our sell high running back video this week, just looking at James Conner saying, well, I mean, this is a running back that is still going to get those touchdowns vultured at the goal line the majority of the weeks from Kyler Murray. So yeah, Conner has 4 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. Of course, that is fantastic. Probably a spot to go through and sell. But right now, I mean, you just have this Arizona Cardinals offense looking unstoppable. Now, our next lesson learned is shame on us for ever doubting Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson coming out yet again, straight up crushing this week. He has over 110 total yards off of 11 touches, 5 receptions out of the backfield, 6 carries, over 110 total yards. But that's not what is so exciting about Cordell Patterson. He has 3 touchdowns this week as well, all in the receiving game. We kind of spoke that Cordell Patterson, with no Russell Gage, would get the bump up in his overall usage. I want to say, however, the snaps were not necessarily there that should indicate that Cordell Patterson, someone that's a must-start player going forward. I still think it's going to be dictated by matchup, even though, I mean, we can definitely say if Russell Gage is out again, if they're one less option in this passing game again, Cordell Patterson's going to be someone you're going through and jamming in. And y'all know there was pretty much nobody in fantasy football that was as much of a hater as for Mike Davis as we were this draft season. I mean, every single live stream that we did, we live streamed like every single day over the past 100 days when we were going through and doing real money fantasy drafts on the stream. And every single time I passed on Mike Davis, didn't matter if we were in the 6th round, I was passing on Mike Davis, and people were coming out screaming at me, Mason, you idiot, Mike Davis is going to get every single touch in this backfield. Why aren't you drafting Mike Davis here? We're saying, okay, well, at the end of the day, this is not a good running back. This is a running back that's played on like 5 NFL teams. And yes, he was productive stepping in for Christian McCaffrey, but that was 100% driven by the situation, nothing driven about Mike Davis himself. And yeah, I mean, he comes out and still gets a workload that I think we have to at least be looking at. He still has 13 carries in this offense, still had 2 receptions out of the backfield. Now I'll say, I'm standing by the fact that we have said it all along. Mike Davis, not a good running back. With those 13 carries, he converted it over to 14 rushing yards. But still, Mike Davis is getting the majority of the touches out of this backfield. I would prefer starting Cordell Patterson over Mike Davis, but we can still acknowledge the fact that Mike Davis will be limiting Cordell Patterson's raw overall upside. Okay, so now let's go back and let's run a quick victory lap. Let's run it back because y'all know before Davis Mills had ever started in the NFL, we called him the worst starting quarterback to see a snap in the NFL in 2021. This was a quarterback prospect that was horrendous coming into the NFL. I mean, it was hilarious that the Houston Texans took him in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. And we said that a week ago, we wanted nothing to do with Brandon Cooks against the Carolina Panthers because Davis Mills was going to be just this bad. And Brandon Cooks came out, had a decent performance. I mean, even though Davis Mills only had 163 passing yards. And I said, okay, well, I'm honestly not even feeling bad about it because Davis Mills just proved that he is that bad at the game of football. And I'm not gonna lie. We thought he was bad. I did not think he was this bad. 11 completions, 21 attempts, 87 passing yards, a whopping 0 points on the board for the Houston Texans, and 4 interceptions by Davis Mills. Now, Brandon Cooks still came out and he still saw, over half of the production here in the Houston passing game went to Brandon Cooks. Over half the production. If you're talking about a target share, you're talking about market share numbers, Brandon Cooks has everything here, where he comes out 7 targets, 5 receptions, 47 receiving yards. So Brandon Cooks doesn't kill you. But still, this is going back to why we called Brandon Cooks a sell-high player. This is going back to why I'm saying I'm not that excited about starting Brandon Cooks. Davis Mills is going to tank everything that you have here. I mean, it's not like you actually have Tyrod Taylor as a great starting NFL quarterback, but he's in a clear tier above what you're getting from Davis Mills. Now, our next lesson learned is going to be something that we learned in week 1, and it's something that we're going to have to include in our must-add waiver wire video. And keep in mind, this is like why you're subscribed to the channel, is because nobody else is diving this deep. Nobody else is coming out with this hard-hitting analysis. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell next to the subscribe button. Drop a like on the video as well, because it took me hours to find this. But I found this guy, came out of Texas Tech back in 2017. His name is Patrick Mahomes. And he looks like he's pretty damn good. Like, I think we need to be going and putting down a decent amount of our fab to go and pick him up ASAP, especially if you're streaming quarterbacks right now, because he looks pretty good. I don't necessarily think you need to worry about the Chiefs at all. I mean, he has 30 passing attempts, 24 completions, 5 passing touchdowns. And then he also has this wide receiver. I mean, this guy was actually drafted on day 3, way back when. I mean, it looks like he is just flying way under the radar right now. I mean, I would even spend more fab on him, but he looks like a good option as well. And we were telling people over the past 2 weeks not to worry about him, but Tyreek Hill, I mean, this guy looks like someone you need to be going and using your top waiver wire claim for. 11 receptions, 186 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. So everybody panicking about these 2 players. I mean, there's no reason to panic. These guys, they look like they're studs. I know they're deep options, probably only for like 16-man or even like 20-man leagues, but still, I think you should go and look to pick them up, and I think you should stop asking me if we need to be concerned in the live streams about these 2 players because they are studs. Okay, so now our next lesson learned is, haters, you owe me an apology. Okay, Nick Chubb coming out pure committee with Kareem Hunt. We talked about this last week, but I'm going to continue to beat it over your head every single week because I want to run a victory lap on this one. And that Nick Chubb, we called him one of the most talented running backs in the entire NFL in fantasy draft season this year. Yet he was our number 1 avoid when he was going at the end of the 1st round, based on the idea that while, yes, Nick Chubb, I mean, is so damn talented, running behind a great offensive line. And we know that he is always having it in his range of outcomes to potentially lead the NFL in rushing yards. And he comes out, he sees 100 rushing yards in this game. I mean, you would imagine that Nick Chubb owners are jumping up and down, just like what you have with Damian Harris owners when Damian Harris gets a decent amount of rushing yards. But what have we always said with these running backs that don't catch passes? You can't be drafting them here. Nick Chubb is in a bona fide committee with Kareem Hunt. You actually see 38 snaps played from Nick Chubb this past week. You have 40 snaps played from Kareem Hunt. And what have we been talking about all along? It doesn't matter if he's coming out and having a great efficiency mark with his yards per carry. It doesn't matter because if you're looking at the valuable touches in the offense, he's not getting enough of them. I mean, it doesn't matter. He comes out and he sees 100 rushing yards this week. He had 1 reception out of the backfield, 5 receiving yards to go along with that. That makes him a low-end running back 2. He scored 11.5 fantasy points this week. On the flip side, Kareem Hunt getting usage at the goal line, Kareem Hunt getting that usage in the receiving game. Kareem Hunt comes out, gets 40 snaps. While, yes, he's not as efficient on the ground. He sees 14 carries, 69 overall rushing yards. So actually, the efficiency's there, just less carries on a snap basis. He gets the goal line rush yet again. We have seen this every single week so far this season. It looks like at this point, we can safely say Kareem Hunt has this goal line role away from Nick Chubb. So if you were drafting Kareem Hunt in rounds 5 and 6 over a guy like Mike Davis, and you're passing on Mike Davis and Nick Chubb in the 1st and 5th round, oh my God, this is just going to be a great year. And another reason it's going to be a great year is, you know, we hated Mike Davis, and another running back that was going right next to him that we hated, even though people wanted to scream at us for it, Myles Gaskin. Myles Gaskin is dead for fantasy football purposes. There's no way in hell you can ever consider starting Myles Gaskin again. He comes out in this game, 12 snaps. 12 snaps, 2 carries, 3 rushing yards. I almost need to go through and make sure that Myles Gaskin did not get hurt in this game, because you had Malcolm Brown coming out with 35 snaps, 8 carries, 23 receiving yards. And this is something we actually talked about a little bit here, and that you were looking at someone like Myles Gaskin. And while, yes, this is a running back that definitely you could try to make the argument is more talented than Malcolm Brown, it didn't matter with the coaching staff going out there and identifying that Malcolm Brown was a running back that they wanted to bring in this offseason, that Malcolm Brown was a running back that they decided to give that contract. We know coaches love Malcolm Brown. This is something we talked about a lot. You saw it in the preseason at the same time. And we actually went through, and I believe we were the only people talking about potentially picking up Malcolm Brown from the waiver wire this past week. Looks like he just took over from Myles Gaskin as the starting running back in Miami here. Oh my God, the people who are going through drafting Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin, reevaluate your process, reevaluate what you're doing in fantasy football. Now, our next lesson learned is Darrell Henderson is a bell cow running back. Darrell Henderson coming back from injury. Now, I will admit, I thought that we were even going to have a bigger day from him where we were telling everybody to jam him in, as we thought this was going to be a game that the Los Angeles Rams actually led, and you had them coming through and deciding to just run the ball consistently in the second half. I mean, you don't necessarily get that, but you still get Darrell Henderson as the lead running back here, where he sees 61 out of 68 snaps. He has 14 carries, 89 rushing yards. He had 6 targets out of the backfield, 5 receptions, 28 receiving yards at the same time. So, yes, not necessarily the best day from a fantasy football context. He's not a top 5 running back because he doesn't score a rushing touchdown. But, I mean, if you do some math here, I mean, going back to what we were saying with Nick Chubb, while you don't necessarily want Nick Chubb because he's completely touchdown dependent, where he himself has 100 rushing yards and scores like 11 fantasy points this week. I mean, Darrell Henderson, he'll come out 89 rushing yards, 27 receiving yards. All of a sudden, that crushes what Nick Chubb had. Then you add 5 receptions on top of it, and you're getting 16, 17 points a game. This is how fantasy football works. Fantasy football works by identifying the valuable touches in these offenses, and for these running backs, they're going to be receptions. Okay, so now let's go back to something that I am an idiot for, and a lesson that we need to just hammer in as much as we can right now and learn this lesson for good. Brandon Aiyuk is not someone we can trust this year. One of the mistakes I made this week was going through and saying, okay, well, Brandon Aiyuk, I mean, you get the step in the right direction in week 3. This is a player that I thought wasn't necessarily seeing the usage we wanted in weeks 1 and 2 based on the idea that he was playing through that hamstring injury. And I thought by the time he was fully healthy, he was going to be good to go. And I mean, in week 3, I was like, oh, okay, well, it looks like Brandon Aiyuk, he's getting there. In week 4, this should be the breakout. Well, Deebo Samuel, 8 receptions, 156 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. And Brandon Aiyuk, 3 targets, 1 reception, 15 receiving yards. So if I ever tell you to start Brandon Aiyuk in a live stream, if I ever tell you in a video to go through and bench Deebo Samuel, if I ever tell you to go through and bench Deebo Samuel live, like if I ever say anything positive about Brandon Aiyuk and say anything negative about Deebo Samuel, you need to tell me, Mason, shut the hell up. You are just a salty hater. You're living in a world where Deebo Samuel is the number 1 option in San Francisco. Get over yourself. You were wrong about Brandon Aiyuk. Please let me know that, because right now Aiyuk taking the wrong step in the wrong direction. And here we go. The last lesson learned. And it's that we may be getting a full-on dance party this week. Oh my gosh. Our guy coming in looked great whenever he was starting from a fantasy football perspective. And this is what we always talk about, that fantasy football perspective, knowing where points are coming from. Our guy, Trey Lance. I mean, with Trey Lance, what have we talked about nonstop throughout this entire offseason? That when Trey Lance gets in here, way more than Justin Fields, more than Zach Wilson. I mean, we even had an argument to be made that more than Trevor Lawrence, that Trey Lance was going to be a dominant quarterback from a fantasy football standpoint, and we want him everywhere. This was centered around the idea that he had the rushing upside, centered around the idea that he's stepping into a great situation. And he comes in, and with a limited opportunity this week, he has 9 completions, 18 passing attempts, 165 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. But what do we love to see? 41 rushing yards from Trey Lance. This is not an entire game of action. This is pretty much a half of football. With a half of football getting 40 rushing yards, if he can hit 60, 70 rushing yards a week, my God, Trey Lance is Josh Allen. I mean, that's what it will turn into. I mean, he will be that elite level quarterback. He will be a top 5 option in fantasy drafts. He's going to be the number 1 waiver wire pickup. If you do not have Lance on your team, you're missing out. And we are probably going to have just a full-on party this next week. I know, I'm pretty sure it's against a tougher matchup. I think they have the Rams. Let me double check this. I could just be completely wrong here. But yeah, this is a nice matchup this next week. We're jamming them everywhere. They're going up against the Cardinals on my birthday. Fire it up. Trey Lance, we're going to have that dance party on my birthday, October 10th. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Like I said, let's hit 10,000 signups on Underdog Fantasy. Please, if everybody does this right now in this video, we are done. We can make these plans. We can do that giveaway to fly people to Tampa, Florida, go to that Flock meetup, go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. This will be my birthday present. My birthday's on Sunday. Go through, sign up for Underdog Fantasy, make a $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK. You'll support the channel more than you'll ever believe. Get a max deposit bonus, make some player props, get in a draft with us. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video. And time to grind. Let's get ready for week 5.